We are taken to a restaurant somewhere, where they tell us, Lee Ji-on, listen to me attentively, tomorrow you will die. It was uttered by one of the saints, Hugo Adas. Lee Ji-on responded, does he have that low of an opinion of him? And jokingly states, Tokniak, you're saying that because I grabbed both my legs, aren't you? Okay, I see why you're concerned. But don't worry, man. I'm surely not going to die. I've slaughtered more calamities than all the 12 constellations combined. Do you seriously think I could die? Adas is tense. Then it explains how it began. Demonic Tower, the dwelling of the worst monster that has the power to kill all humanity. It all began on the final day of the 20th century. The mighty calamity bringers have pushed mankind into a corner with their crushing strength, and all that remains is total darkness and anarchy in its aftermath. It was at this time that the 12 gods who referred to themselves as sacred in Titus emerged. They pledged to give humankind the power to resist all monsters. And they selected 12 men, and gave them indescribable power. But something that everyone did not anticipate occurred. The 13th awakened arrived, without the grace of any sacred being. In addition, this awakened one was so strong, so phenomenal, that even the 12 saints were not equal to him. And it was naturally Lee Ji-on. Adas expressed gratitude to him for assisting them in preparing the attack against the demonic tower. Lee Ji-on mentioned that words will not be sufficient, and he desires a free 5-year supply of fried chicken. He was queried whether he was sick of just eating chicken. Subsequently, the girl, one of the 12, declared that once they defeat Red Eye, they will have a worthy prize. Another of them further added that since this monster is deemed to be the most hazardous one responsible for bringing about bad luck, they should require at least $100 million from them. Lee Ji-on expressed that they should have negotiated for 10 years of complimentary staying in a 7-star hotel in Hawaii, at that, due to Red Eye. Most nations are at the brink of crisis. One of the so-called saints commented, hey Lee Ji-on, if you want to help us cooperate, why don't you raise the bar, isn't it? Don't you wish to cure your deformed body and face? They asked Lee Ji-on what he said and he replied to them that they are not called saints but that they are indeed a group of scum only concerned with their own skin. And they advised him to never rush to the rescue of others, because having a few more victims will raise their price tag, which means the reward is raised. According to Lee Ji-on, after taking down Red Eye, he will never see them again. When they went into the demonic tower, they saw it with their own eyes, the lord of the demonic tower. One can feel a frightful pressure by just looking at it. Then he suddenly begins screaming, that the entire earth was already trembling, and the surface was vanishing from beneath my feet. And suddenly there was a massive shot from beneath it, which already threw all those who were there. This beam went through the tower roof. All 12 heroes were in fear. There was a large crater after the beam in that location, in which lava churned. The demon lord just laughed wickedly. The 12 constellations began to flee. Lee Ji-on was only considering how to fight him at all, and to think that these trash were called saints. Well, it does not matter to me. The one who overcomes Red, I will be the great and unbeatable me, he imagined. And then it's described from Lee Ji-on's point of view. Ah, I was dreaming. At last, I was stabbed in the back by my own fellow comrades. How much time has elapsed, I wonder? How is life in the outside world? Does time pass equally both inside and outside the tower? I'm even too lazy to consider anything. At this moment, and we're seeing a group of monsters the hero is destroying. And this location is a special trap, where new hordes of monsters keep appearing in a continuous fashion. Lai Chang had an aura of an unbeatable hero surrounding him, and he knows he can't be broken this way. And he cries to them to wait for him, because he will certainly survive and rip to shreds all the ones who had the courage to betray him. It is narrated that time went inexorably forward, and now there have passed 20 years since that time. We observe a monster that cries of fear because it managed to reach it. Then Lee Ji-on tells that he is the last remaining one. The beast continued to yell and cry out for help. But nobody could help. The hero replied that he yelled with all his might. It's over. And he ended him, saying, it's finally over. He thought he had options from there. But all of a sudden, he just collapsed to the ground. We are transferred to the world. And we observe that ruins only are left of the buildings. And somewhere 2 boys are running, yelling to one another, run. But I told you that this is not the best option. Another person said to him that who knew that everything would be like this. After all, they said that today will be safer than other days. They didn't even think that they would meet high-ranked monsters. One of the boys with tears in his eyes says that they are in a bad situation, and the fortune teller told him that today, he will meet a monster with which he should not associate himself. They are ringed by a mob of wolf-like monsters, and they believe that if only Mr. Lai Gong were to come back from the Devil's Tower, these monsters would not even venture out here. When, all of a sudden, a tower close by opens up, blinding everybody in the vicinity. And then there is an enormous explosion which creates a crater behind. The men don't know what's going on now, and see that someone is emerging from the tower. It was our Lai Gong, who is bubbling with energy and has seemingly regained his arm. And he further says, "Stab me in the back and leave me to rot in this hole. I won't let you get away with this." The boys are simply surprised at what he is doing, and he just kills monsters with his bare hands. They cannot even believe their eyes that he knocked out the orange class attraction so easily. Even awakened ones with high ranks wouldn't be able to finish them off so easily. They equated the monster to defenseless insects. Suddenly, Li Chun spots these guys and leaps at them. They were quite scared of this, and inquired why he was attacking them. He inquired where they were from, since he believed there were only monsters remaining here. And he said that the job was complete here, correct? Then they understood that it was he who had emerged from the tower. Wouldn't that be a sensation? Another thinks that it is not possible to come back from the tower alive. He is probably just lucky to be close to it. A giant monster emerged behind Lai Chung, and he turned around to find a giant dog there. The guys are just stunned, because this is the pack leader. Li Chun instructed them to leave here. The dog started to load its ability. A beam exited its mouth that reduces everything to ashes. The beam was so large that it stood above multi-story buildings. The guys couldn't believe they were alive at all, and Li Chun just stood there, and there weren't any scratches left on him either. They can't believe he shielded them with his body like that. Meanwhile, the hero cursed her as a mongrel and pounced on her. He instructs her to remain a good dog, and before the fatal strike, he yelled, "Sit down," and struck her so forcefully that the beast was vanquished at once. He was likely finished with all by now, and he says to the guys, "Well, since I did such a great job, you too, grub." He utters in a menacing tone, "They're just scared." Then he just said to purchase him some food, and seeing the absurdity of the situation, he said to purchase more clothing. We are then taken to a little shop, where the boys look at the receipt in absolute terror. After all, he consumed $1,000 worth of food for himself alone. He explained that they told him that they did not have a lot of money, so he ordered some food. They inquired, "Is that a bit?" Li Chun replied, "You yourself mentioned that you would buy me anything, as it is the cost of your lives. Another serving of noodles, please." One of them, who evidently paid for everything, very loudly cried out, "Hey!" The second one covered his ears from such a scream. And then he inquired if he was a Templar or a bishop. What was he doing outside the tower anyway? He smiled, and said that he was within the tower, and then simply walked outside. And incidentally, he too has a question for them. Who are they? Because they seem like common citizens. And why do they have a magical aura? Then one of them described that this boy is a Templar. Isn't Li Chun also a Templar like him with the blessing of a sacred being? He also answered that why on earth would he wag his tail before someone? All of a sudden, he caught sight of himself in the spoon. He was merely in shock, and he began screaming that he wanted a mirror, and immediately, they took him to where it was. Then he removed his t-shirt and began examining his wounds and scars. His body was fully healed, recalling who he was, with what wounds and scars. And he thought, my old wounds were so severe that they were just impossible to heal. But come to think of it, my left arm is cured too. Then he substituted for some sort of design on his palm. Suddenly a snake was starting to move out of it. He was in agony of pain, and he started to crush his hand. You experienced death. You have done an impossible feat. All your abilities are transferred to the new body. All accomplishments from the tower are translated into experience points. You have learned a divine ability. All special characteristics and abilities have been transferred and changed. Ophiuchus' ability is now yours. When suddenly he started getting transported to some place, it was nothing but emptiness, within which was this enormous green snake that was waiting for him right in front of him. He touched her nose. Suddenly there was an enormous blinding light, and then he returned back to the boys. They were frightened and inquired if he was all right. Lai Chang inquired whether he were the only one who could see the enormous snake, pointing out that it was indeed too enormous. They replied that they did not see any snake. He simply undressed and sprinted after the mirror, then suddenly broke out and screamed angrily, holding his wrist tightly. Then Lai Chang understood that other individuals could not see it. He was back in space. You have become the owner of the Ophiuchus constellation. Small screens zip around him, on which it is inscribed what abilities he possesses. Among them is super regeneration. It heals a mangled body. It states that his body was reconstructed from the ground up. For this, he will undergo a small penalty. But the penalty itself was that his bodily strength was lowered by half. And there are 300 hours remaining wanting until the final of this penalty. Then he questioned whether or not his body had been modified due to this ability. He had never had other saints perceive something like that before. Furthermore, he couldn't feel the aura of holy people. And anyhow, he is content with this situation. Of course, his body is perfectly restored. All he had to do now was track down the traitors who left him for dead, and most especially the backstabber who stabbed him in the back. Just the thought of it makes his body quiver. The guys are surprised why he began looking so menacing. We are brought to the tower, which was cordoned off by the police. After all, the tower, which was thought to be invincible, collapsed suddenly. This news will put the entire world on its ears. This location has a close relationship with the hero Lai Gang. The man believes, can't it be that his followers or the saints who detested Lai Gang are responsible for this? Odin then realized that he was the Allure One, a monster even a top-ranked saint could not manage. Who else is going to stop this monster and topple the tower? They started to ask themselves if Gon had actually returned to the world alive. They say they don't know, so they simply have to wait until there are fresh leads. We are transported to an office somewhere, where the camera focuses on the podium. And there is a big crowd of people requesting comments regarding the fall of the tower. Yang Wei, the saint, was standing at the podium, and he mentioned that there were no comments on this topic. The whole crowd is confused why he didn't provide any comments. Then he entered the car and smashed his glasses in anger, constantly repeating how many times he had already heard the name Lai Gang. And on second thought, it couldn't be that he had lived for 20 years in the tower, because there were thousands of monsters there, and they were all black class. It was a miracle that they were able to escape by stealing Red Eye's throat. He believes he could not have survived there. For his body was at its breaking point because of that hulking giant's fatal attacks. And he didn't even have armor like the other saints either. But if he somehow lived and returned, then it's all over. We're returning to Lai Gang, phone in hand, telling him that he should begin with this villain, yes? We are being rerouted to an airport, where a man stepping off the airplane is greeted by the words, "To think that I would have the opportunity to encounter one of the 12 saints. It was an honor to me." It was Hugo Adas. He inquired where the Prime Minister was. He was informed that he was already waiting for his office, and that his transport was already arranged. Then he told them they could go then. These two employees are surprised. They believe that he is very regal. And this is what the truly chosen person is like. Seated in the car, he keeps hearing his phone ring due to calls from an unknown number. But he did not answer the phone, believing they were mere pesky journalists. He cannot believe those news about Lai Gang's comeback so well liked. This irritated him a lot, considering that after all these 20 years, it was reopening memories. How he informed him that he was to die the next day, but he only inquired cheerfully. Does he think so little of him? Then, when they began besieging the Demon Tower, on Gon's insistence, he ventured out and repelled the advancing waves of monsters. He wished to think that his premonition was tricking him, and that Gon would survive. But when he looked at them, he inquired why Gon wasn't among them. The saints who entered with him left him behind, and came back carrying the head of the red-eyed man. The incident became common knowledge to the entire world quickly. The 12 saints, among them myself, were hailed as heroes and obtained even more authority. Hugo considers how, not believing Gon was dead, he kept insisting on them beginning to search for him. But he was informed enough was enough. Jean-Louis Morin told him that he was perfectly aware of the number of monsters from that tower. There is no possible way that Lai Gang could have survived. But if he is so concerned about him, he can go and begin searching for him by himself. No one is stopping him. But it appears to him that then there will be one fewer saint, and there will be 11 of them. My friend still can't believe that anything might have changed in 20 years, because no matter how much Gon has grown up, it's impossible. Besides, it's too late. He remembers Gon only as a good friend. The Prime Minister suddenly phoned him. The one on the other end of the line said that he might now speak. He agreed. Then the minister announced that he surely must already know, it appears that the Devil's Tower has been demolished. Hugo responded, same old story once again, sorry Prime Minister, but if you would like to request that I begin to search for you, then I must refuse. For by then Gon had already passed away. This tower incident is likely arranged by Gon's fans. And if you wanted to take the opportunity to earn more votes, the minister cut him short and explained that this wasn't true, since if his report, which was just submitted to the South Korean government, is valid. A latest call was made to the gone number. These words made Hugo think. The minister explained that the personal number is not known. Hugo was so surprised that he even requested the car to be stopped. After all, maybe the not known number who attempted to call him was Lai Gang. On the phone screen, there were 30 missed calls. He decides to hear the message Lai Gang left. He was speaking in a threatening tone, "Yo Tixu, I'll find you and kill you. Good luck." It sounded so sinister that it frightened the hell out of him. But he knew this kind of speech. It's actually Lai Gang. Then he immediately instructed the driver to turn the car around. They were heading to the airport in a hurry. He asked that he too had a job in the UK. To which Hugo yelled that he didn't care. He had to go to the airport as soon as he could. We return to Lai Gang. He sits with his phone in his hands and says, "You've grown up, Tixu, and you even dare to ignore my calls." He was asked who he calls so hard. Lai Gang brushed it off, saying nothing to anyone. And then he inquired, "They named this device in his hand, a smartphone, don't they?" He really liked her. The hero declared that for the first time he entered the tower in the 2005 year. But now it is already 2025 year. They were amazed that he was indeed using a smartphone for the first time and told him that with it, you can access the internet and view the news. Then the hero inquired, can he view the news regarding Lai Gang? They turned on the news regarding him and informed him that this is now the most popular topic to discuss. There was a dreadful lot of news about him, so he buried himself in it. Then, suddenly, he saw some mean comments from haters who called him useless. Lai Gang was furious, and he was already holding the phone firmly in his hand. The guy whose phone was already on began to shout. He couldn't fathom why they would take credit for themselves, considering they had fled as soon as they encountered the monster. And then I realized that it's worth ignoring, and in a way it's sort of adorable. Then there was the news concerning Lai Gang's will, and he recalled that he chose to leave everything to orphanages and schools of learning, in the event that he died. And he wished that all the funds reached their destinations. But then he saw the inscription. Lai Gang donated all his belongings, including the relics, to the 12 saints in the expectation that they would use the money wisely for the good of the entire world. The phone is done. He crushed it to splinters in rage, and I thought that he would skin them and their gods alive. The fellow had already bid farewell to his phone. Lai Gang simply sat and wondered what to do. He wants to alert everyone to his return, but now his looks are quite different from what they were 20 years ago. And even if he went out and began yelling that he was Lai Gang, nobody would believe him. And he thought that during the time when he was tormenting each of the 12 singly, he would remain silent for a while. Red tentacles suddenly emerged surrounding them. Lai Gang listens to a caution that he is under observation. He sensed this aura and went out. Upon coming out, he saw massive flying clouds resembling animals. And I noticed that they are avatars, small animals of the sacred sign of the White Ram. The avatars created the obstacle in the name of the White Ram. 2 constellations' power is evened out. Avatars impose a tribute upon you. Lai Gang grew angry because of this. These animals may be sacred creatures, but whom do they want to order around? And suddenly, he overheard the discussion. Seriously. This Lai Gang. Everyone just speaks about it. Chatter noise is going to kill me soon. That is what I mean. This stupidity is being discussed anywhere and everywhere because of the news. Despite the fact that his name is not sullied, I notice how everybody's suddenly interested in him now. And then one day, all of a sudden, the fellows saw the badge of the saint on his outfit. And they started to ask Lai Gang to get out. For if they were provoked, there would be trouble. The hero was directly before him. The other, for his part, wanted to be cool and demanded to know why he was staring at him. Taking a pull on his cigarette, he blew in Lai Gang's face and demanded to know if he had any problems. This enraged the hero, horribly. The saint replied that he only needs to try to hit him. His girlfriend advised him not to frighten him since he looks very frightened. The saint at the back called him a weakling and said that all of Lai Gang's fans are as alike as each other. Lai Gang is simply shocked. Why on earth does everybody favor the weakest saint so much? Isn't it rubbish to call him a saint? The guys mentioned that he stood up quite well since these people belong to the A-rank representatives of the constellation Gemini. Lai Gang chose to yell at their backs. Hey, crotches. They turned around and asked, is that you for us? He replied that it was him. The saint approached him and asked him to say it again because such a miserable simpleton from whom even a magical aura does not come out. Just then, Lai Gang grabbed a finger and kicked that saint so that he went flying to another building. Everybody was amazed, and Lai Gang smiled at them. And then he stated she actually believed he would not see her sneaking up on him. He clicked his fingers together once more and flicked her into the next building as well. And then he started calling them weaklings. The lad said that employing magic within the street is absolutely prohibited. Lai Gang responded that this was rubbish. If he had used magic, they would not be wet even. They're just surprised that he knocked out 2 A rankers with pure brute force. As he reached the man, he noticed a small pendant hanging around his neck. Ripping it off, he said, so that's what I felt when I struck him. It's a relic, isn't it? But where did these weaklings obtain it? Only saints should possess them, right? The child inquired if he didn't know anything at all, and he started telling the story. A few decades back, human beings were nearly erased from the face of the earth. But due to the sacred beings and their chosen stars, human beings survived that disaster. Yet 12 individuals could not save our great world. So the saints started gathering followers and referred to themselves as branches. These persons who were presented with a fraction of the strength of the saints came to be referred to as Templars. These individuals were ranked in correspondence with how much strength they possess. At the top come the saints, closely followed by the sacred beings. Cardinals are subject to election into the office of new saints. Then come bishops, who happen to be the strongest Templars. And then there are the Templars, at the very bottom. And he went on to say that the Templars' strongest source of power is their faith. So there is stiff competition among branches to gain new followers. This way, chosen Templars are given relics by sacred beings every now and then. Lai Gang understood that everything had undergone a great change in 20 years. Suddenly somebody shouted at him and asked him to look there. And there were avatars staring at him. Avatars of greed and wealth that belong to the constellation of White Aries are pleased with the situation right now. They insist that Lai Gang handle the man and woman who attacked him promptly. Avatars relish bloodshed. In return for their massacre, they offer him a deserving reward. The guys are frightened, for these are not ordinary Templars, but already avatars. Avatars are like reflections of the sacred beings themselves. Standing in their way is like standing in the way of the gods. They instruct Lai Gang to do whatever the avatars demand. It was then that Lai Gang realized why he sensed the foul aura of Aries so intensely. This enraged him, for they also meant to fill their bellies like that pig. And he told him that nothing is different since then, getting ready for the jump. And then with all his strength, he jumps into the avatars, that already in the sky a huge red cloud was. And then he tells that they are showing off, although they are weaklings. The guys are amazed, because the constellation stepped back, and the barrier broke down. And we understood that this fellow is not such an obstinate individual. The protagonist turned to them and inquired about those 2 weaklings. They are affiliated with the twin branch, are they not? Then they added that in their nation, twin branching plays the strongest role. This is an elite group who has concentrated 2/3 of all major corporations. And Lai Gang inquired, so there must be money on them? And the clothes they are wearing are likely to be some pricey brands. And immediately after that, I ran up to him with the utterance that now is the time to earn a good amount of profit. We are taken to a small multi-story building. And all say that they finally arrived. The guys said that they reside in that apartment in the 2nd floor, pointing. His friends said his door is next door. Meanwhile, they also thank Lai Gang for rescuing them and even leading them home. They were waiting for something. But the hero yawned and inquired if they were going in or what. He wants to rest. They were surprised that he was going to rest with them. As if he was invited in for a sleepover, because the next thing we know, his hair is being shaved off, and he's getting undressed. Then he poses proud in front of the mirror. Han mentioned that his new short haircut really works for him, and now he's even cooler than before. This pleased Lai Gang immensely, as previously, baldness was a byproduct of employing his powers, and he cherished each and every hair. Even a regular wind would blow his hair off. Who knew that he would ever be able to repair his hair? When suddenly he felt the charm in his apartment, he smashed it in his hand with lightning speed. Han is simply stunned, because he caught it with one hand. Even professionals can't do that. Lai Gang there stands with his hands and pushes away everyone who approaches, and inquires how much it is already on the bill, how much it is possible. They are extremely sticky to him. Han proposed that perhaps they were drawn to his smell. Then the hero responded that this happens normally when there is something wrong with the house. And he saw the relics and said, just look, naturally these monsters will come here. Because you keep such an abomination in your home. Han was surprised, because these relics were personally received from the Gemini constellation, and added that these artifacts do not belong to him, but the saint blessed them on. Li Gang immediately smashed the figurine in Han's hand. Han is extremely angry. Then the hero explained that the mask in his hand is made to spy on the buyer, and the music box captures all his personal information, and the watch so commonly attracts monsters' attention. Not only did these saints steal Li Gang's belongings, but they also began selling such disgusting products to people. Just the idea makes the hero angry. There is someone at his door, and he can hear Li Gang screaming behind it, and then he enters the house. Li Gang asks him who else he is. Han welcomed him, and it was Sung Yi. These words made him extremely angry, as he is the owner of this apartment. We are taken to the house of the White Ram Yang Wai, where the saint is told that the Korean avatars have vanished. His staff told him that there was a huge commotion in Korea regarding it. The saint was curious to know who would do this, as avatars are direct representatives of divine beings. Only someone immensely powerful can scatter them. Then he tells you to call all the other saints, and inquire if they have anything to do with this. The servant said that Sagittarius had not been in contact for a long time. The saint told me that this was not a matter of concern, as he had informed me that he was going to obtain a new job in Great Britain. The servant said that he was told that when he went to the airport, he boarded another plane immediately. Then the saint asked where he was headed. He replied that it was to South Korea. Then he pondered, after all, Hugo was on good terms with Li Gang. Was it possible for his action to be connected to the rumors of his return? He knew that he likely did survive. This angered him so much that he even picked up a floor lamp and hurled it at his servants, and screamed, "Absurd rubbish," telling them more clearly. What else is there? The personnel reported that an unconscious twin-branch Templar was discovered lying in the middle of the street in his underwear at the location where all the avatars vanished, and from the accounts of witnesses, he had a fight with a handsome young man. The saint believed it couldn't possibly be Li Gang, for his face was entirely scarred, and he knew things were not going particularly well to start with, so he actually could return. Then he considered, for some peculiar reason, Korean avatars went missing. Worse still, we failed to complete the Spider Queen. At such a pace, my seat is in danger of being lost. And then he requested that a plane be prepared for him, since he wishes to see for himself what is going on in Korea. We're being sent to Twin Branch Hospital. That's the man over there. And there is a grandfather standing over there, yelling, who had the nerve to cripple his grandson like this. Then he began to snap at the man beside him. But he said not to worry, because that's what he came there for. It was Min Sung Jun, a Templar of the S-Class twins. We go back to Sung Ji-ai's apartment, where they tell him how they met Li Gang. Song did not appear to actually believe the tale where they met at the Demon Tower, and he defeated all the drakes with his bare hands and knocked out an A-rank Templar. Dream begins yelling that they are saying some nonsense. It does not even sound like the truth. He just ruined all his relics. Li Gang said they were fakes anyway. He was questioned which department he belonged to. Li Gang answered that he felt like he needed something of this nature. Then he inquired who god he belonged to. Li Gang explained that these 12 weaklings never gave up on him. Song asked him what his title was, and he did not even know what to reply, but told him that he was a production worker. And he demanded to know his name, and the hero replied he was Li Gang. Han began to soothe Sung. But he was already set on fire and furious, he said. Broke into a stranger's house without leave, smashed all my relics. So you presume to impersonate, as great Li Gang Nim. Khan was yelling at him to shut up, because he's going to set their apartment on fire at that very moment. Li Gang was given a caution that a burst of Gemini devotee magic had been sensed, and he told me that he appears to have made up his mind to leave nothing of the house. After that, he activated the God's Gaze skill, and I witnessed its traits. He is a Templar of the constellation Gemini. His rank is A. His nickname is Smashing Strike. His skills are the ones which stake an ice seal. His personality traits are genius, visionary, stubbornly obsessive, and an idolater. The genius trait enhances his training effect by 200%. Li Gang thought that at this age, he already had high-ranking skills, and the trait of genius was obviously not for him. The demon who was awakened from the dream is scary. Han yells at Li Gun to escape, since he's a ranked Templar, and he's also a fan of Li Gun. Sung asks, is Jimin insane? Leave, if you don't want to get slapped too. Li Gang immediately backed him up and said that he was playing with fire. Song did not even realize when he was already behind him, when suddenly Li Gang makes a loud click and utters that at this pace, he can burn the apartment, no, the entire house. Han is frightened and asks, is he going to be okay at all? Lee said he likely did. Han gazed at Sung and listened to the words likely. Of course, he was shocked. The hero mentioned that he was going to bed, and that he should shortly regain his senses. Upon entering the room, he observed an enormous mountain of Lai Gang figurines. The hero was simply in total shock. Han told him that he had cautioned Sung that he was a die-hard fan of Li Gang, and the dream requested to be cautious with his figures, as they cost more than his life. Lai Gang approached and raised his head from the figurine and told them that they were pestering him. A tearful dream cries out that this crazy man will desist from this. He answered that he was not mad, but Lai Gang. Sanu was so infuriated by his numbers that words cannot express them, were taken to a coffee shop, where from the television narrates, yesterday at lunchtime, 2 officials of the Gemini branch were assaulted by someone whose identity is yet to be determined. The motive of the assailant, according to witness testimony, was to steal private property. Hugo immediately knew it was Gun's work. Hugo knows what Gun has done incorrectly, and this is the first thing he hears. The waitress approaches him and asks if he will order something. Hugo had recognized at once that there was something wrong, and instructed young Wai to cut out this clowning and leave here. Then the waitress said, so boring, you guessed me out too soon. Long time no see, Hugo. I've not been able to contact you for a long time, you know. From your rushed arrival in Korea, you also arrived here due to Gang. I suggest you quickly tell me everything you know yourself. Hugo removed his hand from his shoulder and explained that was why he disliked him, saying he was a disgusting worm who steals other individuals' bodies. Meanwhile, the girl was let go, and she did not know what she was doing. Hugo was angry. Then he thought, his jokes are crap. I have to reach Gon sooner than everybody else. Where the hell are you? We're relocating to Gyeonggi-do, Bukhan, to a hypermarket. Han informed Song that perhaps it actually is Lee Gon. Song has said that Gon is quite different. Apart from this, Lai Gang is the savior who rescued mankind, and how can he be that rogue? Han replied that he surely saw him emerge from the demon tower, and his power is gigantic. The dream insists on its validity, and proclaims that it is impossible. That's what his dad told him, and rushes him to bring the goods to the counter, when suddenly there is a shout that the thief is inside. Suddenly, the guys are tackled by a thief. Han is shocked that there is such a haste at all, and it appears that this thief is from the Scorpion branch, and moreover, he uses his abilities to steal the store, all merchandise, and even purses. If he had not been stopped, nothing would remain. The thief thinks very highly of himself, and thinks that since he's a Templar, he can't be caught, and it's already boiled well, so it's not worth fleeing. Lai Gang suddenly intercepts him with a punch to the stomach. The thief is simply afraid of this. Han inquired of him why he had come to catch them, and he replied that he just forgot to tell him to purchase their chicken. The man who was hospitalized visited them, and informed them that the hero is not so bad, as it is hard to capture the Templar of the Scorpio constellation due to their speed and agility. After that, he added that based on his aura, he was a simple investigator. You should report to the police next time. Lai Gang inquires who else he is, and then suddenly everything trembled under them. The entire store was trembling. The thief finds that this is a good opportunity to escape, and immediately flew away from there. When he escapes, he believes that he was very lucky to escape, and the earthquake will work in his favor. Suddenly, a gigantic centipede emerges from the ground. The thief wondered why he seemed to enter the green zone. I knew that I needed to leave before it was too late. Leaping high, he believed that he could not catch it. To his surprise, he ended up in the jaws of a monster, and within a blink of an eye, his life was ended. It was the Spider Queen, and it was quite scary, and on the loudspeaker, they began calling out that there is an emergency now. The unfortunate person has come into the hypermarket. Everyone who is present in close proximity departs the building. The status has been shifted to red zone with the arrival of the Spider Queen. Folks from the building started to flee in various directions, but only one boy remained and wept. A gigantic monster was heading straight towards him from behind, devouring him. When Lai Gang suddenly collides into it, it's gone. Nothing remains of the monster. The boy has no idea what to say. He's scared to death. Li Gang tells him he has to be careful next time. I asked him if he'd hurt himself by holding out his hand. The boy became frightened and ran off, and Lai Gang didn't receive a scene from a cool action movie. Then he coughed and indicated that apparently all was well with him. He wondered what the big thing had forgotten. He called his snake and told it that for the first time in a very long time, he would be having fun. We're taken to Yang Wai's car, and he requests that I repeat what his servant told him. He told him that the unfortunate ones materialized in the center of a hypermarket in Bukhan City. Yang Wei requested I repeat the name of the monster. It was the Spider Queen. The saint appeared frightened and recalled how they had not succeeded in their previous raid. He'd just been able to close it, and she'd been able to escape, and he knew that he could not withstand a red-class monster on his own. It is said that once those who bring bad luck appeared, individuals started to categorize areas into 6 classes based on the risk level. The first is the blue zone, the blessed home. The second is a green zone, a secure area. The third and already more perilous one is the yellow zone, a light hazard. The fourth is the orange zone, where there is a great danger to life. Fifth, the red zone. These are areas filled with lethal monsters. The fourth and most risky is the black zone, in which life is totally impossible. Yang Wei knows that as the Spider Queen has emerged there, the hypermarket is now a red zone. The staff inquires about what they are supposed to do with the problem in the hypermarket. He answered that they had to close everything up. After all, if at least one person finds out that this is because of their failure on the previous raid, then they're done for, and he instructs the servants that there is no possibility of saving those inside, and let them send the Templars there to seal up the building completely. We go back to the hypermarket and Gon, the Templar who was there, began employing his magic. He hit the ground with his ice spears and yelled incantations. It is clear that it was one of his most powerful spells. But in a few seconds, the captured monsters escaped from the ice. It was hurtful to his ego that they could shatter his spell in an instant. Meanwhile, Lai Gang approached him with a handful of cans in his hand. The Templar did not even see him approaching him. Gon said, "Here are the parasites, you eat so much that you chose to eat human beings." Grasping one of the cans, he flailed it, and yelling at them to eat using it. And lo and behold, that enormous monster got sliced in half. It was Lai Gang, who immediately rushed to him and stabbed him, and told the miserable mobs to know their place. The guys opened their mouths in shock. A notice popped up before Lai Gang that he had killed the unfortunate one. His level went up, and he received a consumable item. This surprised him, and he wanted to find out what consumables are, with which he can pick up supplies to make new skills and relics. He considered, and realized his production skills as well had undergone a change, but decided later to attempt another time. Even though his bodily strength is now 50% less, walking does not become so strenuous for him. It may even be able to consume more power than it had before it disappeared. The Templar is astonished, because Gon effortlessly slaughtered the monsters that his S-rank abilities could not prevent. Lai Gang resolved to give back the knife to the boys, since he brought it with him from home. Templar cannot comprehend where this fellow came from. Suddenly, he decided to yell at Gon and began screaming, "I knew something was amiss here. You're the fellow who assaulted our followers." Lai Gang recalled them, and resolved to strike him. I then inquired of him how he had known. The Templar yelled that how not to recognize him at all. He wore the outfit of the man he assaulted, and the badge attached to the outfit is an S-rank relic, used only by the Templars of the Gemini branch. He continued that he was certain the Templar's secret of power was with this very badge. Lai Gang didn't notice it until then, and promptly burst it open. It actually hurt the Templar so much that he even yelled at him. Gon declared that this so-called relic can only be used as ornamentation, and not more. He cannot even believe that these scoundrels have not changed at all in 20 years. When the Spider Queen attacked them again suddenly, the hero did notice it, but the guys were extremely afraid. Everyone who was present started running away in various directions, even more than they had done before. By then, Gon was already getting ready for combat and rushed at her with lightning speed. Then, with a mighty kick, he thrust it into the ground. People are amazed at such strength. The Templar is appalled with him, for he knows that Lai Gang charged into battle with no single relic in fists. And the Templar is somehow telepathically told about the sentence, "Attention to all Templars of the Gemini branch. It's Sun Hyuk, Sun Yi, and Sun Jun, are you guys? Get out of the building right away." The Aries branch people plan to seal the building entirely. Yang Wei is coming here in person. We can't stop him. Moreover, even a saint can't deal with the Spider Queen. That's why they chose to eliminate this place entirely. After all, the saints will be in trouble if people know about their failure. Sun Jun, you have a teleportation skill, don't you? Take Sun Yi and leave there. Then Zhang only told the two of them to leave. And I looked at how many people were still outside and how many more monsters there were. Lai Gang kept fighting the Spider Queen. Meanwhile, Zhang started to wander off. Sun Hyuk asked, "Is there an issue with the two of them leaving?" Meanwhile, Zhang said that there was no issue. Sun Yi began to yell, "What are you saying? Outside assistance is obviously not sufficient. Don't you see how much we're stuck here? Or are you proposing we abandon all these individuals here to perish? Meanwhile, he also mentioned that he knew. His point was that if the Spider Queen emerged in the middle of the city, what would society think? After all, then the people will start blaming the branches of the constellations. Their belief will be weakened. And due to this, the authority of the saints will be disturbed. Humanity's belief with sacred beings has to be strong. Sung Yi wasn't about to leave all the people behind. So June pulled out his phone and said that he could teleport only one person along with him. So he selects Sung, because he was told to pull him out. Sung Yi cries that he will not move an inch away from his friend. And still, there remain many people who have not gotten a chance to leave. June says, now is not the time for flights of fancy. And he positively does not wish to die over there on his account. He added that he couldn't go against the orders of his elders. So he decided to kill all the people so that Sun would have no choice. This made Sun very angry. Therefore, he also started to activate his abilities. At the same time, June said that he really intended to fight him. After all, they are completely on different levels. And it tells you to set aside your conscience and make a supposedly rational choice. And then suddenly he was struck on the back by a large part of the body of the monster. And as it happens, Lee Gun was there. Seeing the guys, he asked why they were still around. It's unsafe there, so they have to leave. Dream explained the exit was clogged with the misfortune ones. So if they can't escape, then they will have to use the teleport or kill all the monsters. But there are many injured people here, and the Ares branch folks chose to seal the whole building. Gon was not happy. Zhang walked out of the rubble and yelled for him to come to him. Lai Gang explained that if he weren't dreaming, then he was terrified and already escaped with studded heels. Then he made a phone call and said, let's just see if they make it out of here alive. Or at least he imagines that he's the sole savior for them. However, his plot didn't turn out as he wanted. The queen shot a spider web straight at him, and clamped his hands and feet so he couldn't move. He understood his situation. But it was too late, and he was pulled into the monster's mouth. Leaving only his pitiful phone, Lai Gang said, you two, I'll handle everything here, while you handle the wounded. I'll meet you later when I finish. It will not be long. They take us to a hypermarket in the dome, and by then Yang Wei had reached there, inquiring about the condition. He was informed that the building was nearly cordoned off. Ian said that they had already begun before he got there, and they did not think it was too slow. The servants observed that the barrier was not holding as it ought to. It is as though something is going to erupt. Then, unexpectedly, a bright flash comes out from beneath the barrier, then a giant snake, straight out of the hypermarket. Yang Wei himself was quite startled. All the people who had been trapped in there escaped out of it. They requested that they skip over, and rescue the people most likely still remaining in the shop. A person in the crowd mentioned that there was a man battling a monster by himself. Yang Wei overheard this, and recognized that something was amiss, because even he could not stop the Spider Queen, so he headed to see what was going on. He was warned that it might be unsafe there. He said that he did not matter, and that they should not be complacent. Bouncing in with his quick pace, he spotted the Spider Queen dead, and questioned who would have killed her. There were signs of actual carnage all over. He had no idea what was happening here. And I began to wonder if indeed someone was specifically targeting the Spider Queen. And he told me that more and more headaches, though he feels that even without this, he has a lot of issues. When I suddenly experienced a familiar power, and thought about seeing who did it. Then he spotted Hugo, and I began to make up lies about him, thinking perhaps he had done it. Behind Ian, a person stood up and said in an eerie tone, "Did you miss me?" Yang Wei was extremely frightened. Lai Gang observed this, and inquired about "What's up, Peggy, something wrong? It has been so long I have not seen you. What is that phrase?" Yang Wei so afraid, he does not even know what to speak. It came out only to stutter to speak, we are suddenly shifted to the road to Sun, before the ambulance and other units arrived there. Meanwhile, Song asked himself if that fellow could actually be Lee Gun Nim. He believes that despite the guy's differences, but his gestures. Then somebody shouted at him. It was Hugo. He inquired why he came here. Song Bircha questioned why he returned. Han was astonished that the holy symbol of Sagittarius personally approached him. Hugo was not pleased with the way anybody could treat their father. The words cracked Han up, but Song blushed. At the same time, Hugo mentioned it was good he wasn't hurt. Little doctor's care will have him straightened out right away. And then he demanded, more significantly, Dream, did you happen to be in that market? I was told every monster within that building was decimated. You saw who caused it, didn't you? Song just snorted at him. Hugo was furious but did not express it, and he could not help but wonder what his son had turned out to be. Han asked then whether Gang Hyun would be fine. The moment Hugo heard this, he began questioning him at once. Whether he knows him or what is wrong with him. Han told me that Gun is now in the hypermarket, and further added that he was able to defeat the Spider Queen, and told me that he introduced himself as Li Gang. Hugo requested me to tell him everything in detail, but at that time the hypermarket wall was broken by something or someone. We are shifted to Yang Wei, who used his ability. Gon explained that it was too much, since they hadn't seen one another in 20 years and the first thing Yang Wei wanted to do was attack him. He was going to inquire as to how he even survived in the tower, but then looked at the man standing in front of him and thought, he really does resemble Li Gang a lot, but where did that awful scar on his face disappear to? Yes, and his voice sounds so familiar, but unlike it used to be. And also, he looks far too young. And then Yang Wei exclaimed how dare he impersonate him. After all, he was even afraid for an instant. Gun exclaimed, what? Imitate? Ian bellowed that if he had the guts to cheat the Great One, then he will have to pay for it with his life. Meanwhile, Gon punched him on the belly as hard as he could and exclaimed, all these years, you've been making money cheating people, isn't it? Yang Wei flew far away, and meanwhile, Gon jumped behind him and knocked him back onto the ground. And then he added, each of you should learn a good lesson. How was it? Meanwhile, I was stuck in the Demon Tower pig, you've taken over my relics and property. Even the will was counterfeited, wasn't it? It's alright, don't worry about it, I was going to kill you all anyway. Maybe we can get on with your execution. Then your home, your branch, your relics, and all the rest of the saints. I'll burn it all down. Yang Wei is trembling and still doesn't think it's him. But he realizes that the way of speaking and acting are like him. He's apparently not bluffing. Ian could not even see all his movements. Was he really the same Li Gang? How did he survive and come back from the Demon Tower? And then he asked, what nonsense is it if you really are Li Gang, prove it. Meanwhile, he began using his magic. There were a dozen sharp swords around him, and then a crown on his head. Li Gang got a notice that the holy essence of Aries constellation, i.e., the Jade Emperor, had appeared. Meanwhile, he was also astonished and remarked that even the holy being privileged him with its attention. Yang Wei pointed at Gon, and in the very same moment, 10 chains encircled him, and he inquired if he still believed that they were weaklings. And his following spell was 100 swords. He also added that he didn't know how he could make it through the tower alive. Then he spouted the sovereign skill, heavenly weapon. The Jade Emperor shot all those swords directly at Gon. This amazed Li Gang. Yang Wei yelled at him to and die finally. A group of swords were poked into him at that time. Due to this, a gigantic mountain was created. Ian believed that he had succeeded. When he came near the Tower of Swords, he stated, it's wonderful that you managed to escape the demonic tower, but your overconfidence remains there. Test someone who has been gaining experience over the years through the aid of their fans. What recklessness! Did you actually think we'd stood still for 2 decades? But we hadn't. A lightning bolt emerged from the mountain of swords. Yang Wei was taken aback by this. Right away, a fist burst forth from the swords and struck him in the face. The blow was so fierce that the whole mountain broke into pieces. Concurrently, Yang Wei inquired whether it actually was Li Gang. He answered that he finally knew him and went back to their souls. Then he realized that even his weapon stank. Ian was extremely surprised. After all, such regeneration is impossible even for the constellation of Aquarius, which possesses healing abilities. Li Gang was informed that he was about to die, and that the requirements for the Strength Skill 13 were fulfilled. He told them that due to that, he got stronger, and he gave a suggestion that since he was already here, why not experiment with a new skill? The Holy Spirit of the Aries constellation sees Li Gang in astonishment, and she condemns Yang Wei, inquiring as to why Li Gang still existed. The sacred being keeps repeating in shock that this should not have occurred, after which the sacred being just hastily flees shouting obscenities. Yang Wei is just shocked. Why did his sacred energy abandon him before its completion? Li Gang mentioned that he was very kind, so Yang Wei would only experience the agony that Li Gang himself endured. The servants and Hugo come into the building after a while. They notice that all of the monsters are killed, and Hugo himself senses someone's energy. He is able to view whose energy it is with the assistance of his power. It was Yang Wei, and he realizes that surely this is Li Gang's work, but he always causes trouble, but this is too much. The servants can also feel his aura, and they tell him that it is extremely weak. Hugo told everyone to step back and slap the floor with his hand. Meanwhile, they dropped through the floor to Yang Wei, and then he said that this guy is actually Li Gang. Yang Wei himself had a note from Reed on which he wore to the pigsty. We are taken to the time when Li Gang is already at the doorway of the Ares mansion, and he tells us that he most likely stores all of his relics here. He went in and found a group of people and relics and then told them that he most likely pretended to be a treasure god. Gang could smell his relics. He understood that the clothes were removed from the house, but the weapons were replicas. Abruptly, he saw the toothpick he was holding. He was happy to see her. Then the commotion and sirens began throughout the hall. All the guards ran over and encircled him, telling him to let go of the relic. Gun said that although he didn't want to, he likely would. He immediately required all the guards to have lightning speed, and he mentioned that old stuff is a lot better, and then said it was good to see him again. It was a slug. The notice informed him it was a relic, a lump of slime capable of recreating anything. Requirements for the crafting workshop skill have been fulfilled. Now he is able to construct a 17-square-foot workshop. As the hidden skills have been revealed, he is able to bestow his trait on the slime ball. Gang proposed that the slug head towards the exit, but at once he sensed the powerful aura of the Ares constellation relic. Then he uttered that it would be a waste to go back empty-handed and decided to open the door there. Hugo had already reached by then, and observed that all the people were running away from there. He mentally pleaded Gon to stop, when I observed that Gon emerged with a large bag, seemingly relics. Then he cried out his name and rushed to him weeping. Gon waited for him smilingly, and stated that in the name of old friendship. But Hugo confused him with the man who was beside him, and he started yelling that if he was alive the whole time, he should have located him. And he inquired of me what was wrong with his leg, how he ended up back here, and where he had been the whole time. Gon became upset, and threw himself into it with all his might, exclaiming, how can you mix up someone's face? Did he say that he wanted to die, because he was mixing him up with someone else? Then Hugo saw a clot of slime, and Gon said that obviously Tixu wants another beating. But Hugo was too glad to see him that even so, he went to hug him, standing in tears declared that he was alive. And is it really him? Gon is also extremely glad to see him. But he is still furious at him, so he punches him in the stomach, and then questions him how dare he rush at him so suddenly. Hugo recognized that it was him for sure. Hugo's sacred aura suddenly was unveiled. It was a god resembling Hugo himself. Both of them were surprised. Why did he suddenly appear to them? God, Hugo questioned. They both gaze at him, and don't know what he is trying to achieve. The sacred being Apollo questions the reality of Li Gon's existence, and volunteers to confirm it. Hugo questioned him as to how he would do it. The holy being Apollo sets his arrow on Lyra, saying, all will be explained when I shoot him. Li Gon remarked that he should simply eliminate this disgusting god. Anyway, whenever he encounters a man, the first thing he does is to set a weapon against him. Hugo attempts to soothe both of them and instructs Li Gon to forget it. It's all right. He didn't offend him on purpose. Gon exclaims, do you speak good? We shall go on as we began. Hugo can't recall how things began between their meeting. Yet Gon reminds me that he was about to kill him. And he explains that when he came back from the Demon Tower, he discovered his house sold, his property taken, and all the relics somewhere. And he explains, he should have punched me once. Then it hit Hugo's head. He is glad it is actually gone, but angry because he punched him too hard. All the guards rush out of the building at this time and yell to catch the thief. They have to return the relics. Gon recalls that he was allegedly being pursued. Hugo had asked him what he had already stolen. He points to a large bag and says a few trinkets. Hugo is shocked that he stole the relics from Yongwei's safe. Li Gang finds it cool, but Hugo doesn't. The guards indicate that they need to take him in immediately. The head guard indicates that they cannot deal with him. And he indicates that the thief will definitely be too much for him, even though everybody believes that he is very strong. Then they see a giant avatar flying out from the back of a building. The head guard mentioned that he was already present. A gigantic paw dropped, and there was the Ares constellation avatar, the beast of plenty Piku. Li Gang is informed that it is the avatar of Ares, and his money, not to mention relics, could be stolen. The avatar growled at them fiercely. Terrified, Hugo does not know what to do, so he proposes they leave everything behind. Gun instructed him to simply stand there and observe, for he had a plan. He then orders his pet to turn into a knife. He started transforming, and he was able to create the handle, and in no time the blade as well. Gon, observing him, understands that he is not fit to engage in combat with the avatar in this form. So, he requested to reveal its real form, beginning to bestow the knife with its potential. The knife has been hit by lightning and transformed into a gigantic sword. The awakened relic has been bestowed with the Ophiuchus aura. The relic has received more deadly stats, courtesy of the Snake Hunter trait. Blade sharpness increased. Impact power on the blade has been increased. Gon has gotten a power-up of 13 strength skill, thus he can now view the weaknesses of the enemy. He found the path of death. He's surprised that he found a new skill once more, so I opted to utilize it immediately. His eyes immediately spotted the weaknesses of the enemy. I hopped on him and informed him that he was going to break up a little. Hugo simply stands there and glares at him, assuming it's his way to charge into the enemy without hesitation. He always manages to overcome adversity, even with his impulsiveness. Hugo is greatly relieved to have his friend back. The avatar suddenly drives the gun into the floor with its paw. Hugo cries out in terror, "Gun!" Then, out from under this avatar's paw emerges, and what did you scream? What odor? I nearly died from the odor of that pick. Now it's my turn. The paw of the monster was cut off right away. The avatar began growling in pain and began to use his skill, which takes in all values that are within the range. Gun snidely remarks that the avatar ought to have remained silent, but now he will not leave without being punished. Gun began employing his power, the Ophiuchus line. Having said that one light slash would suffice, he swung his sword and struck the avatar. A massive shockwave was hurled at him. It pierced straight through him and the entire building as well. Everyone surrounding them was stunned by the strength. The effect made a massive impression on the earth. Hugo is shocked, as such strength is similar to what he possessed in his youth. Gon killed the avatar. His holy throne level has been elevated. The notice queried whether he desired the Beast of Plenty as an avatar. Gon believed that only 12 saints could acquire avatars. After touching the avatar, it instantly came back to life, and even transformed in aspect. It looked like wings. The Piku Beast transformed into the avatar of Ophiuchus constellation. The Beast of Plenty minimized itself to accept its new master. Gon declares, it will be wonderful to use it as a storage area for his relics. Hugo considered, did you steal an avatar from another branch? When had he even been able to obtain such an ability since his comeback? The alert informed Gon that he was allowed to rename the monster. Meanwhile, he yelled, "Piggy bank!" We are brought to Hugo's mansion, where Gon calls him a traitor. Hugo was offended by these words and yelled, does he have any idea how much he was worried? Then a resentful Gon said, while your friend was jailed in the tower, you married, had a family, and lived life. Traitor. Up to now, some people have had to endure pain and suffering equivalent to the hells. His friend was blissfully passing his blissful days. I did not even attempt to locate my missing friend. Is that what friends do? I returned after 20 years, but you did not even recognize me. I agree, the look has changed a bit, but nevertheless, thinking about it depresses me. Was that the reason why I wanted to return? These words struck and infuriated Hugo simultaneously. Following which, Gon further added that he would not mind his presence and would leave. Hugo assured that it was alright, he could stay at home, but still lives alone. Gon began to slap me on the back and apologize for even mentioning it and that he should have brightened up by making a hint about divorce not being such a calamity these days. Hugo yelled that he was not divorced, and his wife simply, before he could get another word out, he decided to switch topics, and he asked what was happening inside the Demon Tower. Hugo is aware that Sung Yi and Yunho should not discuss Li Gang since they are mad about him, and then he described in detail how it was his fault that he had remained outside during the raid to hold in the approaching monster forces, and hence not knew what occurred within, and he inquired why they had returned with Red Eye's head. Gon replied that it was a very tearful account. They stabbed him in the back and abandoned him to die in the tower. It was a trap, infested with hordes of hundreds of monsters called enticers, and among the horde of these beasts, Red Eye, whom he thought was dead, had risen from the grave. Hugo was very shocked that he could be revived. Gon explained that what they witnessed in the raid was not his actual body. His true body was concealed deep within, and even with him being able to win over him, the core issue wasn't Red Eye, but the tower administrator. Time and time again, he resurrected all the drakes he had slain. He cut up each of them, but at one point he was overcome by the impression he could not escape alive. Once he finished the last of them, he fell down from fatigue, and he added that unless his memory and sentiments change, at that time he was as good as dead. But then, having opened his eyes, he realized that he was somehow outside the tower. There, he had a peculiar sense of energy and stated that there was only one thing of which he was sure. The backstabbing scoundrel had very well understood the configuration of the tower. He threw it into the den of the drawer, as if he knew what awaited him there. He confidently asserted that at some point or another, he will reach those who took his property unto themselves. But the treacherous one who stung him in the back will face a special reward. And for this, he needs to prepare properly. Simultaneously, he started making good equipment. He requested a workshop, and began incorporating the material into building it. One of them was the Spider Queen core, which imbued the target it touched with magic. A fragment that causes mishaps has a higher success rate in building and enchanting objects. Having it all in the creation shell, he considered that he should simply combine it all. And I inserted these materials into the toy horse. The house filled with item creation effects. A new entity was recreated. It was a simulation red horse. If you inscribe someone's name on a horse, the magic power of those who touch it will run from the owner of the name. Gon states that relics with their own entities can evolve independently. Hugo was taken aback, and even pats him. And then he told him that while it is extremely valuable, but the design is simply disgusting. Gon scolded him, because he had used so much material to make this horse. He said that with the leftover materials, he wanted to make something for him. But now he did not want to. Hugo promptly told what a beautiful design. You are a skilled artisan in creating beautiful relics, Gon. By disgusting, I simply meant my own failure to feel the entire aesthetic of the object you made. Gon cooled off and stated that he would consider his behavior. And the first thing they must do is somehow entice all the saints. Hugo questioned him how he would be able to do it, as it was doubtful that the other constellations would choose to abandon their homes. Gon replied that that would be sufficient, and produced a golden box. This is a relic of the royal family, a treasure holder of the golden fleece. It enables you to hold objects of any size. If you give him a certain amount of money, you can increase the items contained within. Hugo explained that the royal relics are the most precious things only accessible. I inquired as to how he obtained something like this, because only Yang Wei has access. Gon explained that since Hugo is a beggar saint constellation, he brought this thing to use as a wallet. Hugo became angry, and yelled that his constellation had a different name. Gon explained that high-quality relics need much more materials than regular ones. With this, he can produce new materials, and from them, in turn, make tons of high-ranking relics. Hugo inquired how. Because there was someone present who could trigger it. Gon inquired why Hugo couldn't. He yells that his sign is Sagittarius. They both slumped. The hero said that he has a feeling that they can turn it on. One friend stated that that is impossible, and they will need to find another escape route. Gon reported that he had already put in a request to the news network. It broke Hugo up, and he asked again, what did he do? Gon doesn't want to acknowledge. Hugo screams and demands what did he send to the news network. Apparently Gon told them so. So Hugo is utterly horrified. We are taken to the Blue House of South Korea. One of the individuals sitting there says they were extremely embarrassed by their inability to handle even a single spider, and he comments that they should still keep selling talismans. Why do they even participate in fights with the enticers? It was Bishop Leo, Oliver. He was instructed not to make such comments. Oliver responded that he had heard the Spider Queen had been slain by some unknown boy. Was it possible that Li Gang himself had come back to life? Someone shattered the glass with a cry of enough. Then he turned to Oliver and explained that he must be extremely interested in Li Gang's success. It was Sung Hyuk. Oliver replied, what's so great? Li Gang wouldn't have any issues in destroying this enormous thing, and didn't he watch that video from Burning Russia? Sun replied that it was because he was empowered by other saints, and also brought him the greatest weapons. In such comfortable conditions, even they would have performed better. Oliver chuckled and mentioned that they did not succeed in catching the spider because they were not provided with the conditions. Sung spoke nastily and said, I would like to mention here that the Spider Queen was ultimately slain by us, Twin Branch. The cost was the life of an S-ranked Templar. Oliver named them poor things for they paid an enormous price, and he would like to shake this poor guy's hand. But, unfortunately, this will have to dig into the monster's belly. The two of them emanated a blaze of rage. The man who sat beside him and heard all this asked himself when the Blue House became a den for these rascals. A servant rushes into their office and informs them that there is an emergency report and requests them to switch on the news. On the news program, we have an emergency power-up. Our news station has just received a mysterious package. In it were pictures of the sacred sign of Aries, Manhwa, and also a brief message. The note read, "I'm back. Based on the test results, the handwriting is 99% identical to that of missing hero Li Gang. We return to Hugo's house, where he is there fuming and asks Gun what he was thinking in sending them something like this. Jin nonchalantly said that it was merely an announcement, and he informs them that their heads will also be on his plate soon. Hugo yells at him to tell them that attention is not enough. Besides, Yanghwa's death is already a big issue in itself. But Gang chose to make it worse with this message. Jin looked at him and told him that Yanghwa was not dead, and he was definitely not alive. Hugo was completely shocked, because Gun pulled out a toy and told him that it was Yanghwa. What a bunch of name-calling Yanghwa called him. Hugo does not know what to say. The toy just removes itself from it. Jin told him that because of the recent conflicts, all his skills had incrementally improved slightly, and was able to encase Yong's astral body inside this toy. Hugo is not even sure whether that is possible. Jin informed him that that wasn't something to be primarily focused on, and handed over the dagger. And then he told him that it was the same dagger which was lodged in his back, the same one that led to his imprisonment. Hugo sees it, and understands that it is the dagger that nearly killed Gun. Based on its shape, this dagger is anything but ordinary, and he told him that if that is what he got hurt with, then it surely wasn't Yanghwa. And Gun stands with a wicked smile, pulls the toy, and states that he likely ought to apologize to him. And then he says that he is going to the shopping complex. Hugo asked why he was heading there. He displayed the toy with the words, "Piggy informed me that she saw a blade of a similar shape there. And then I requested clothes from Hugo." Once he had changed clothes, he instructed number 2 to guard the house. Hugo asked why the second one. Did he have a first? As he departed, he said, "I'll be back soon first." Hugo was infuriated. We are taken to the Aries mansion. There were a bunch of servants roaming around investigating this place. Then, it seems, the major one said that as expected, the constellation of Aries is not there, and the aura of the sacred essence is not felt also. The water-splashing girl inquired where he could have vanished. This was the sacred sign of Aquarius, Sophie marred. The servants explained, perhaps he took his belongings and intentionally vanished somewhere. Sophie declared that if he intentionally made deals with the saints behind my back, then things would get very complicated. She asked herself where the fat bald man could have gone. The employees speculated that it could be Li Gang who had kidnapped Yun Lai. Sophie laughed a lot and told it was a very silly joke. The servant responded that she was extremely sorry, but uttered these words thoughtlessly. Sophie answered that everything was all right. They will go to the shopping complex as they had previously agreed. They have to allow themselves time to eliminate unnecessary relics and make money for the drachma auction. A servant entered her bathroom and told them they were in trouble. Another saint will take part in the auction. We are taken to the gym, where 2 men tell us, "Mr. Stephen, we have heard that a relic of Li Gang is going to be auctioned out." Stephen immediately dropped his barbell when he heard this, and he told them that at last his time had come. They must take this relic. We're taken to an alley where Son Yi and Li Gang teleported. Teleporters cost money, but they can teleport for them for free. They were taken to the relic trading complex. Dunn thanked him, explaining that he really needed an expert, and he offered to assist him in finding an SS-ranked one. He mentioned that he was always willing to assist. But recalling Sun Hyuk's words, "You know that guy who murdered the Spider Queen, don't you? Get him to join us at whatever price. We are willing to do anything." I see my phone, where the boss says that he must bring him in, and they would give him a black card, forever free teleportation, and a very profitable contract. Dawn noticed this, and wondered why his boss was pestering him. Despite the recent episode at the hypermarket, brandishing his hand with the dagger, he declared that he was returning it, explaining that it was a great assistance in the fight against the bugs. This dagger was Janice Will, who was heavily leveled up. Sunyi told him that he felt as if he destroyed it after that fight. Dawn told him that he had restored it fully. Efficiency has changed a bit. Son thanked him. They approached an SS rank appraiser. People around were amazed and surprised that such a human would be at such a place. This was the holy sign of Aquarius, Sophie Mart. When she arrived at the door, she told him that she was going to dispose of a couple of some antiquities before the auction process began. The security guard told her that he was extremely sorry. At the moment, though, the appraiser had another client. In her head, she was enraged, and thought about how they had the nerve to attend to somebody else while she was already there. But she said she will just wait in line, and he is thinking who is still inside. Gunn glances over all the remnants and says this building belongs to an SS-rated player. Prices are just suited for his ranking. The appraiser turned to Sun and asked him whom it was created by. Gun yelled that he did it himself. The appraiser began asking whether he had any relation with Lai Gang. It was Jin Mansong explained this person is just copying Gon. Jin requested that they leave him alone for a while. He had some questions to ask the client. Then he asked him how he had any relation to Lai Gang. Gon requested what was wrong. Jin added that most people are unaware of this, for Lai Gang is renowned for his martial art. But he is also a good needlewoman, and he added that the relic they retrieved was astounding. He had witnessed countless fakes in the past, but the statue was not like any of them. His instinct is that Lai Gang himself was involved. Gon asked why Jin appeared to know so much about Li Gon. Jin explained that naturally, as he was his favorite pupil. Gon inquired, "What?" And I was curious why he was blushing disaster. Lai Gang considered how he didn't recall having any pupils. Jin explained that based on his age, it was not possible that the hero had been trained by Lai Gang in person. Jin explained that it's truly excellent work because the appraiser nearly thought that it was real. Gon questioned whether he could simply sue the appraiser for fraud. The appraiser required the hero to examine the item he got when he was identified as Lai Gang's disciple. The hero instantly recognized the notebook which he had lost long ago. Gon remembered that pesky newbie who had tagged along with him everywhere in China. Jin, on the other hand, spoke tearfully about how Lai Gang was really a man with a good sense of aesthetics. Jin explained that at one point, he even had the privilege to become familiar with his expertise. But then one day Gon just vanished, leaving it in his house. Lai Gang thought he had lost his notebook, but as it turned out, the guy had stolen his notebook. Jin mentioned that he couldn't read the handwriting, but he was certain that there were many great ideas concealed in this notebook. He was happy to have inherited something like that. As a matter of fact, it was a list of Lai Gang's victims. The hero believed that after he got awakened, he always received information with what he believed. However, as this fellow is an SS rank awakened, Gun assumes that Jin can receive much more information. Jin transferred the notebook and explained that he believed that it would better suit the young talent than it would him. Lai Gang believed that this was wonderful, as the notebook contained his very first drawings, so he was really angry when he lost it. He got a message that the sleeping magic of the notebook was responding to the aura of the owner. In the influence of Ofachu's magic power, the notebook was changed into a relic. Jin yelled and told it was a memory-type relic. He explained that it seemed like Lai Gang had put a spell on him while he was still alive. Just then, somebody broke in and told Mr. Jin that they were in great trouble. One of the subordinates explained that a saint was waiting outside. Jin clicked his tongue disdainfully and told them that they were making such a big deal about nothing. At the same time, Sophie stood outside. She did not understand how these nobodies had the courage to look at her. Sungi stood among the people and wondered whether Sophie did not attend only official meetings. He thought she was too particular for such outings. "We've been waiting too long," Sophie uttered from the entrance, "waiting. It's time wasting." She said that she believed she should go inside and personally speed them up. Meanwhile, she was enraged, because in her mind, the appraiser ought to purchase their relics for a good price, so they would have sufficient funds at the drachma auction. She was informed there remained a customer within. Nevertheless, she was questioning what sort of client they had that they did not care about her. She wished to be permitted to examine that snickering face. Then she spotted Lai Gang. Suddenly, she was shocked. She glanced at him and noticed how handsome he was. She just wanted to get a better look at him. But then she spotted an enormous snake. The girl was startled. Suddenly, she went down on her knees. They inquired as to whether or not she was all right. Sophie was confused about what type of frightening aura she had just felt. She experienced as if numerous poisonous snakes wrapped around her body. She came to understand that she had to leave here at once. Why did she abruptly flee? Jin asked herself. She doesn't appear to be fine, Gon Lai reported. A report was received that a subordinate of another sacred being dared to move close to Ophiuchus. The other's divinity has been delegated to Ophiuchus, and the present rate is 35%. Gon asked himself if divinity was not equivalent to magic power. Divinity is sacred power needed in order to preserve the power of a sacred being. Gon can steal divinity from believers of other branches. If the value reaches 0, the sacred throne will begin to lose its power. In this instance, the gun will be exposed. Gon was shocked that there were even such mechanics. Gon inquired of Jin whether the girl who had just walked in was a saint. Jin inquired if the hero did not recognize her face. Although she was the one in all the news reports on the saints, The man told him it was Sophie Mard, the sacred sign of Aquarius. The hero laughed heartily and remarked that he was surprised that everybody was so thrilled about the saint. But she was the saint. Meanwhile, Gon was reasoning that Sophie had changed quite well. It was not surprising that Gon did not recognize her at once. She was always good-looking, and now she's even better. But even if her looks had changed, her stinking little soul remained the same. Jean explained that if you combine groups of things he hated, such as fish bones, pests, and sewerage, Sophie would be a pest. He explained that he didn't even wish to consider her as a human, because in her eyes, how her skin looked was more important than human lives. Jean explained that he didn't get why everybody considered her a saint of compassion and selflessness. He told me that she really has a very selfish and cruel personality. Gon was astonished and told me that Jean was really learned. Jean told me that she once provided Mr. Lai Gang with healing assistance, and on this pretext, she attempted to usurp all his acquired property. But Lai Gang's riches were hunted by other saints as well, so the issue came into the hands of the government. Gon questioned whether they were attempting to withdraw the funds that were built up in his name. Jean mentioned that she had the impression that she was on the verge of calling out the young man's name. The man asked whether it was possible that the man used to know the saint before. Gon informed them that they were once best friends, then found themselves being taken to a side alley. The subordinate inquired if Miss Saint was fine. Sophie was shocked and couldn't understand why it was his face that she remembered at that time. But that magical aura that wished to devour Sophie was quite similar to that individual's aura. Sophie inquired from her subordinate if she had ever been so terrified that even death would have appeared as a better choice. She instructed her to return to the pawn shop and learn the identity of the man. The subordinate informed her that she knew and inquired about the appraiser. Sophie suddenly changed her mind. She instructed a subordinate to just complete them. The subordinate told her that the appraiser is under the protection of the Virgo branch and they still have to sell the relics to him. Sophie instructed them to do so on the grounds that one made the saint wait and the other had the temerity to humiliate her. Sophie asserted that they both deserved punishment. She said she would even give her a relic and lend her a piece of sacred essence power. The underling said that it is prohibited to employ magic in the neutral zone. But Sophie queried whether the subordinate was refusing to do errands for the saint. The subordinate was in a losing situation. She indicated that there was no way she would dare, because if a saint's desire is your desire, then it is also the desire of a sacred entity. She bowed to Sophie and was willing to receive the gift. She declared that the will of the sacred essence is the will of heaven itself. She wanted to know how she could go against the command of one of the 12 saints sustaining their whole world. Gon, present there, inquired, "Is their roof leaking?"